Welcome back to Analytical Media. We are a consortium, a group of therapists, college professors, and well-published peer-reviewed authors. We are all academics. Today will be part 4 of critical thinking. If you've seen part 1, 2, and 3, then you're about ready for part 4. However, any one of these is a standalone topic. And you'll see that when we break this down a little bit more, probably in the next video. We'll begin a 10-part series looking at specific aspects of critical thinking. So as a little summary, we have determined that when you are thinking, planning, interpreting, thinking, that thinking can be correct or it can be incorrect. That's logical. You can be right or you can be wrong. That's logical. You could think it's not going to snow today and it snows. Well, then you're wrong. It's simple. If you knew it was going to snow today, you might have taken the other car, the one with the good tires, but you took the car with the bad tires and you slid at the intersection, wrecked into some people, wrecked your car. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So, being correct helps you in life. Being incorrect hurts you in life. And a lot of being correct or incorrect is determined by your ability to think. Correct thinking is thinking that correctly predicts reality. So correct thinking helps you to be right in life. If you know what's happening right now, if you're correct in who you can trust and who you can't trust, if you're correct in your ability to perceive your own needs and desires, if that's all true, then when you predict things in the future about what will make you happy in the future, it will be more likely correct. And that should make sense. If you are correct about what makes you happy in life right now, then you should be able to predict what will make you happy in life in the future. And if you can't determine what makes you happy right now in your thinking, then it's unlikely that you will be correct in the future. When you make decisions that affect, should you move to Denver? Should you stay where you're at? Should you take the promotion? Should you get divorced? These are all things where you can be right or wrong. It's an interesting way to think about life, that you can be right or you can be wrong in your decisions. And the thoughts that produce those decisions, you can be right about those thoughts or wrong about those thoughts, those perceptions. And when you make a decision, it's much more likely to be right if the thoughts that produced that decision, that led you to that decision, or your interpretation of your current reality is correct. If you think about it, you will admit that in your personal life, you have been right and you have been wrong. You have made right decisions and you've made wrong decisions. You thought you should have dated that person, but it turned out that you were wrong. You thought that you should have majored in a particular area, but then you found out that you were wrong. You thought that it was safe to park your car in that neighborhood, but when you came back later, your car was stolen, and you instantly knew that you were wrong. You might have thought that it was okay to eat that donut every day on your way to work. Stop and get the coffee, that's low calories. Eat the donut, pretty nice donut. And that donut was 500 calories. And every morning when you get up, you leave for work, you go to the park, you go out to get your coffee and donut. Well, that donut was 500 calories a day. And you never thought it would affect your weight, but it did. In 3 months, you gained 12 pounds. It's not 12 pounds of muscle. It's 12 pounds of fat. And you found out you were wrong. And if you do overeat 500 calories a day, more than you have been, 500 more than you've been eating, which is that donut, you will gain 12 pounds in 3 months. Simple science, 3,500 calories in a pound. 7 days a week, overeating 500 calories is 3,500 calories a week. That's 1 pound. There are 4 pounds in a month, 4 weeks, 1 pound per week. That's 4 pounds per month. 3 months times 4 pounds equals 12 pounds. So if you look at your own personal life and you're honest and you want to be happier in life, you want to make better decisions, you want to be right more often, you don't want to screw up. And we look at the screw ups, that simply those were times you were wrong. Those were times you had a choice, you made a decision, you made an interpretation, and you were wrong. And you paid for being wrong. If you'd been right, you would have been much better off. So, let's get together here in our thinking. You have made mistakes. Not bad luck, but mistakes. There is bad luck, of course, where you make a mistake through no fault of your own, or something happens to you through no fault of your own. That happens. But other things you could have controlled. And you notice now that it makes a difference if you're right or you're wrong. No, you don't get the right, you don't have the right to be an opinion of being right. It's, no, you're right or you're wrong. It doesn't matter if it's your opinion that you're right or it's your opinion that you're wrong. You were wrong. And you paid a price for it. If you were right, you paid no price. In fact, your life probably got better. And then at this point, nobody's blaming anybody. And most certainly, I'm not suggesting that you intentionally attempted to be wrong. You did not. Your intent was to be correct and thus make the right decision. But nonetheless, you ended up making the wrong decision. Why? More than likely, it's because of some fault in your thought process. So, I hope we have established that it's very important, and you need to realize this, that in life, you must be correct. You got to do your best to be correct. You have to do all you can do to be correct. And also, as a correlate to that, it's also important to realize that it doesn't matter what your intentions were. If you intended to be wrong and you ended up being right, well, it worked out for you. But if you intended to be right and you ended up being wrong, well, that's your fault. And it doesn't matter how hard you tried to be right. The only thing that mattered was whether you were right or you were wrong. Good intentions don't count. Opinions do not count. The only thing that counts is that you realize, in reality, there is always a price to pay for being wrong. And again, it didn't matter what your gut was. It didn't matter how strong your opinion was. Now you could say, I thought about this for months, I'm telling you. I'd wake up at night thinking about it. And still, I made the wrong decision. What went wrong? You put enough effort into it. What went wrong was a defect in the thought process itself. And that's all critical thinking is. It's focusing on how to think. It's focusing on identifying the ways people are attempting to fool you, to lie to you, to manipulate you for their benefit, even though it will harm you. It's going to harm you because they're going to lie to you, they're going to deceive you. And we're going to talk about all the ways they do that. And the only thing that matters is whether you're right or you're wrong. You should prosper when you're right, and you will certainly pay for it when you're wrong. You may not prosper when you're right because there are other factors, but you will always suffer when you are wrong. Raise your children the wrong way. You'll pay a very heavy price for that when your children turn 18. And by the time they're 21, you'll hear about every mistake you made. And you'll say, well, I thought forcing you to play the piano and practice every day when you got home was good for you. And they'll tell you, no, it ruined me. Nobody else did that. I don't give a damn if I play the piano or not. I hate the piano now. And I won't forgive you for that, mother. Now, if you were right, if you said, I thought it was important for you to play the piano, practice after school, but when I saw that the other kids in the neighborhood were out playing and how much you wanted to be out there playing with them, I said, I think play is more important. And you'll learn the piano. We'll get some practice time in. It doesn't have to be right after school. And then what will the adult children say then at 18 or 21? They'll say, you're right, Mom. I would never be playing the piano today. I used to hate you when you would make me stay in when my friends were playing. And I hated the piano. But because you let me do those things with my friends, I got to experience that. I was happy when I practiced later. You will be critiqued by your children, believe me. And many of you who are listening now have already been critiqued by your children. They'll have no hesitance to do it. Doesn't mean they're right, by the way, but they'll critique you. And the most important thing that I could convey to you is that you need to be correct in life. And to be correct in life, you need to think correctly or critically. Talking about critical thinking, we could call it correctly thinking. And the importance of this goes back to Abraham Maslow and his identification of self-actualizing people who were corrected in their thinking much more often than non-self-actualizing people, but they were very successful in life. They weren't oppressed. They were happy. Their marriages worked out. Their friendships worked out. They accomplished things in life that made them happy. Might not have made their mother happy or their father, but it made them happy. That's called self-actualization. We could look at his theory in great depth, and maybe we should at some point. And again, if you want us to do that, let us know, because we will. We do respond to questions from people, ideas from people. We try to help. We have no other agenda. Self-actualization has become a major part of psychology. It's very similar to Carl Jung's idea of individuation. Now, to sum both ideas up, if I put them together, self-actualization and individuation, this is more or less, this is a quick summary, when a human being grows in life from childhood to death, this growth is a process of actualizing or realizing the self. The self lives in your unconscious mind. You go to visit the self when you go to sleep at night, when you become unconscious, when you leave this world. And then in the morning, you come back to this world as the conscious mind. Maybe in the middle of the night, you shuffle off to the bathroom in darkness or semi-darkness, and you realize you can hardly remember where you are. You can't remember what you were dreaming, but you know you weren't in this world. And when you wake up in the morning, people say, I need coffee before I can wake up, or whatever they say. Some people say, I don't wake up till noon. Well, waking up really means re-entering this world. You're someplace else during the night. Now, in that amazing unconscious mind that Jung talks about and Maslow refers to, there is the true self or the real self. And that self is what you were meant to be or really are. But in this world, in the outer world, you haven't brought that in. You haven't become that in this world. Probably because it's hidden from you and you have to find it, you have to expose it. Now that self, the real self, the true self, it exists deep inside your mind, but it remains unrealized or actualized until you bring it out, until you allow it to be realized in this world, to become a part of this world. There are strong implications of this theory For instance, depression and anxiety all come from a stymieing of the self-actualization process. Jung believed that. Maslow states that the only psychologically healthy people are self-actualizing people. That's it. And Jung says basically the same thing. And if you're familiar with Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, which you would be in education, as a teacher, you would be as a nurse, you would be as a physician, as a psychologist, virtually everywhere. Maslow breaks it down from the lower needs, the physiological needs, the love and belonging needs. He breaks it down and only in their stages or levels, one by one by one. Then the very top of a pyramid, and oftentimes that is a pyramid of needs, it's referred to as Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs or Pyramid of Needs. At the very top, when you've done everything at the bottom, you've satisfied those needs, then you can work on self-actualizing or actualizing the self. Now, this isn't about self-actualization. This is about critical thinking. But I need to tell you about Maslow's theory to make my point about critical thinking. Maslow states that only a small percentage of people will begin self-actualization. Most people will not. You need to be one of those small percentage that begin self-actualization. You do not want to be like everybody else or most other people who will not. He says emphatically and clearly, distinctly, that only self-actualizing people are psychologically healthy. Now what about the rest? How do they function in life if they're not healthy? Well, they function in life by drinking, drug addiction, legal drug addiction, right? Like medications, prescribed medications, antidepressants, etc., etc. Now, Maslow is not saying that all mental illness is caused by an inability to self-actualize or a poor degree or level of self-actualization. He's not saying that. But he's saying lots of it is. So he's not saying that failure to self-actualize causes all mental illness, but he's saying it causes some mental illness. And in reality, he heavily implies most, causes most, because you're happier. Why do you go to your psychiatrist or even your PCP? Do you go because you know you have some mental illness? No, you simply go there because you're unhappy. We know that becoming self-actualized or beginning the self-actualization process makes you happier. We know that. It makes you more fulfilled. Life has more meaning for you. A lack of meaning, a lack of happiness, a lack of fulfillment, those are all ways to say depression. And the easiest thing to do is to get a prescription to help you with that medication. And in many cases, that's the only thing you can do. Maslow is not saying otherwise, but he's saying for a big chunk of people, self-actualization will make you happy, fulfilled, will move you to a state of being that's not manic, but fulfilling, meaningful. In that case, what Maslow is talking about, being mentally ill, the opposite of that is being mentally healthy. It's not like saying the opposite of depression is mania, which it is, by the way. But curing depression doesn't make you manic. Curing depression just gives you a life where you're happy, and it's a meaningful life. It's a fulfilling life. He blatantly says only self-actualizing people are psychologically healthy. So for psychologically healthy people, for Maslow, they would possess the characteristics of the self-actualizing person. Maslow lists the characteristics of the self-actualizing person. I will give you the web address of a site that lists the characteristics of self-actualizing people, and it does so by presenting a chapter from Maslow's book on personality and motivation. That chapter is entitled The Characteristics of the Self-Actualizing Person, and he has a list of characteristics. Now, I haven't been to this website in a very long time, years, literally, and I hope it's still there. Hold on a second, I'll check. Okay, I just checked. It's still there. Go down to, that would be expandmind.com, expandmind, expandmind.com. Go down the page to Self-Actualization. It might be listed Essay Study Guide, and you will find that chapter and all the characteristics from Maslow's book. Now, in there, you will find Maslow saying this about his characteristics. He says, by far the most important characteristic of the self-actualizing person is the ability to perceive reality correctly. That means think correctly. That's exactly what it means. To think in a way that will allow you to comprehend reality correctly. And he says, perhaps all the other characteristics of self-actualizing people are simply restatements of the first characteristic. In other words, that all the other characteristics are simply derivations of the ability to perceive reality correctly, or the ability to think correctly so as to perceive what is real, what is really there. Okay, now if we pause for a second to think about it, we have to judge our thinking, our ability to think, by its ability, the thinking ability, to be correct about reality. And when I say correct, I mean its ability to predict reality. That your thinking can predict reality. Your thinking can say to your friend Karen, no, Karen, you shouldn't trust Kevin. He is going to break your heart. She doesn't want to hear it. But it turns out you were right. She's going to be hurt badly because her thinking didn't lead her to your conclusion. Your conclusion was correct. So you have to be correct. And you only know you're correct. You only know that you were right about Kevin with time. You could be wrong about Kevin. You could make Karen completely happy. But you say no. You think you're right. You predict quite a bit about Kevin. And if Karen would have listened to you or been able to see what you saw, your perception of reality, she might have saved herself an enormous amount of pain. So, your thinking must be able to predict reality. Reality is the world that surrounds you. For instance, you must decide many things every day. Should you date this person? Should you take this professor for your class? How much should you study for the test? Is it safe to use illegal drugs? What career should I go into? Should I have children? My partner has cheated on me. Should I forgive them? Big question. Don't forgive them if they're going to cheat again. But then again, we'd have to know enough to predict that, wouldn't we? But certainly forgive them if they slipped and made a mistake. But we need to know how to decide if that's the case. Did they slip? Did they make a mistake? Are they truly sorry? And if they truly are and they'll never do it again, save the relationship. But you need to know what the truth is today to decide what's going to have to happen to protect you in the future. The answers to these questions are critically important to your future happiness. When I say happiness, I mean contentment, your future contentment. Your feeling in the future that you have a meaningful life, a good life. Something good's coming from it. It has meaning. That's what we're talking about. You formulate those answers through the thought process, through thinking. However, not all thought processes are equally likely to be correct or to provide you the correct answer. Critical thinking is an analysis of thinking. It is thinking about thinking. That's exactly what it is, and it's oftentimes described that way. Critical thinking. Thinking about thinking. Thinking about how you think, what goes into thinking, how you should think. Many of the bad things that happen to you in life, many of the mistakes that you will make in life will be the result of a faulty thought process. There are other reasons why you will reach an incorrect conclusion in your thinking. You might have a good thought process, good thinking structure or process, and still you came to an incorrect conclusion because of insufficient data, bad luck, a hurricane, a tornado, an invasion by alien forces from outside the galaxy. But mostly you will come to incorrect conclusions because of an incorrect thought process. By utilizing the techniques of critical thinking, you will eliminate incorrect thinking. You won't always come to the correct answers because of unscheduled alien exterminations, perhaps of the entire human race, but you will eliminate incorrect thinking. Today, each of you has access to enormous amounts of information, much more, hundreds of times more, thousands of times more than at any other point in human history. If your thinking has led you to a wrong conclusion, today it is not for a lack of available information. So it's not nearly enough to read all that you can and gather all the information that you can before making a decision. You must gather that information. You have to utilize it, think about it the right ways. Gathering information is the first thing. Once you have the information, once you've done the research, you must interpret that research. You must evaluate that information. You must synthesize that information. You must do so utilizing the principles of logic. If you've done the things that I just mentioned, then you are already a critical thinker. If you're looking for a simple definition of critical thinking, and no simple definition will suffice, then we will look at it from the Greek language. In Greek, the word criticos means to question or to analyze. Thinking is the cognitive process involved when interacting with the world, both externally and internally. So looking at the Greek language, critical thinking simply means, quote, thinking about our thinking. We're questioning our thinking. We're analyzing our thinking. In our next video in the series of critical thinking, we will look at valuing truth above self-interest. We'll analyze that because most people don't do that. They put self-interest first, and that shields them from the truth. But that's what we'll talk about in the next video. Hopefully, you'll learn everything you need to know in this little course that we're putting together. But you can already see it filled up quite a few hours of classroom time. This was what was presented at university levels. If you are the serious student, we are the serious teacher. Okay, this is analytical thinking. I hope we have succeeded in helping you. I hope we will succeed in helping other people. And you can help us to help them by liking and subscribing to the channel. Because that's what you need to do for YouTube's algorithm to promote you to other people. That's it. I hope you're enjoying this series and the other things we've done. I hope you'll join us the next time, and I hope you and yours have done well and will continue to do well in life. See you in the next video. Take care.